version 4.0, as light rain falls without reason, new weapon overview. Here it is. It just came out today. We have a total of 12 new weapons to talk about today. 12 new weapons to talk about. Starting off with the creme de la creme. Y'all, the first great magic looks so good. 66.2% crit damage, 608 base attack, charge attack increased by 16%. Not only is this for Lini, this is for Ganyu, this is for Tignari. This is gonna be so good for those charge attack dependent bow users. And for every party member with the same elemental type as the wielder, including the wielder themselves, you get 1 stack of gimmick. For every party member with a different elemental type, you get 1 stack of theatrics. Every stack of gimmick for 1, 2, and 3 stacks increases your attack by 16, 32, or 48% respectively. Every stack of theatrics for 1, 2, or 3 characters who are different from the character wielding this different element, you get movement speed increased by 4, 7, or 10% respectively. I think this is going to be really fun to play around with, to figure out like how many stacks of gimmick, how many stacks of theatric is going to be optimal for the character. I guess kind of what teams you're running and what build you want to run. But this being on the first weapon banner along with Aqua Simulacra, Yelan's signature weapon, means that the first weapon banner literally is, you can't lose. You can't miss on that first weapon banner. Yes, Mono, Pyro, Lini, we got to try it. You got to try it. 3 Pyro and a Hydro. You got 48% increased attack, Vaporize, out the wazoo. I think that's going to be a fun team. But this bow looks ridiculous. All right, and of course, the Ascension materials are going to be all new materials from Fontaine. Next up, we have the pipe, the Fleuve Cendre Ferryman. I'm saying that wrong. I'm just going to call it the pipe. It just looks so goofy. You're smacking someone with a pipe here. It's an ER weapon, though. 45.9% ER and attack, base attack of 510. But increases your elemental skill crit rate by 8% and increases your ER by an additional 16% for 5 seconds after you use an elemental skill. The Ascension materials are the exact same, actually, as the bow. Maybe this is going to work well for Hydro Traveler. We'll see. Yeah, this is the fishing weapon, which means I will never own it. I got the catch, and that was painful. I never even got the bow from Sumeru. You all will have to let me know how this one is, because I will not be using this. I will not be obtaining this weapon. And now we're going on to the Battle Pass weapons. Again, 5 new weapons are added to the Battle Pass, not replacing what's currently on there. 5 new weapons are being added to the Battle Pass in 4.0 with Fontaine, starting with the Scion of the Blazing Sun, which is the bow. Now, all Battle Pass weapons are crit rate weapons. So that means all 10 Battle Pass weapons are all crit rate weapons, which is interesting. Now, this one looks like it's going to be a really good option, a good 4-star option if you don't want to pull for Lini's signature weapon. So this is after a charge attack hits an opponent, a Sunfire arrow will descend upon the opponent hit, dealing 60% attack as damage, and applying the Heart Searer effect to the opponent damaged by said arrow for 10 seconds. Opponents affected by Heart Searer take 28% more charge attack damage from the wielder, and this can be triggered once every 10 seconds. It lasts for 10 seconds. It can be triggered every 10 seconds. So as long as you're hitting an opponent with a charge attack every 10 seconds, you're going to be able to keep the Heat Searer debuff up on them, meaning that they're going to be consistently taking 28% more charge attack damage from you, which is really cool. So that's another charge attack weapon buffer. And then we have the Catalyst, the Sacrificial Jade, 36.8% crit rate, 454 base attack. Jade Circulation, when not on the field for more than 5 seconds, max HP will be increased by 32% and EM will be increased by 40%. These effects will be canceled after the wielder has been on the field for 10 seconds. So this is an interesting one. When they're off field for more than 5 seconds, max HP is increased by 32% and EM is increased by 40%. When you think about this as someone like Kokomi, for instance, if you were to put this on Kokomi, she's going to get 32% max HP increase when she's off field and 40 more EM. So if she puts her jellyfish down and then goes off field, after 5 seconds, her max HP increases. Does that mean that the jellyfish healing increases? Because I can't remember if her heal snapshots her max HP when she casts it, or if it updates in real time. If you guys know, let me know. I feel like this might be more for some characters that we're going to get in Fontaine rather than anyone that we have right now, because crit rate also does nothing for Kokomi. Next up, we have Ballad of the Fjords, the Polearm. 27.6 crit rate, 510 base attack. And this is an interesting one. It's nice and simple. When there are at least 3 different elemental types in your party, EM is increased by 120. So if you're running a diverse team, it's an extra 120 EM. This weapon looks like it's going to be great on Xiangling. Xiangling Impact continues. Did we ever doubt that this wouldn't be a decent polearm for Xiangling? No, we did not. We never doubted that. The Talking Stick Claymore, obviously the opponent to the Debate Club. So good. The Silver Tongue. 18.4% crit rate. Attack will be increased by 16% for 15 seconds after being affected by Pyro. This effect can be triggered once every 12 seconds. All elemental damage bonus will be increased by 12% for 15 seconds after being affected by Hydro, Cryo, Electro, or Dendro. Triggered once every 12 seconds. If you're affected by Pyro, 16% attack increase. If you're affected by Hydro, Cryo, Electro, or Dendro, 12% elemental damage bonus. You can trigger this by being healed by Kokomi or Barbara, because you're afflicted with Hydro. But yeah, this one definitely requires you, I think for the most part, to be taking damage or to be getting hit by something. And you can definitely, I'm sure there'll be ingenious ways people come up with for doing that. Maybe if you light the grass on fire and then you can afflict yourself with Pyro to get the attack buff. It'll be interesting. This is going to be an interesting one to play around with. And then finally on the Battle Pass weapons, we have the Wolf Fang, which is our sword. 27.6 crit rate, 510 base attack. Northwind Wolf is the effect. Damage dealt by elemental skill and elemental burst is increased by 16%. Pretty good. When an elemental skill hits an opponent, its crit rate will be increased by 2%. When an elemental burst hits its opponent, its crit rate will be increased by 2%. Both of these effects last 10 seconds separately, have 4 max stacks, and can be triggered once every 0.1 seconds. So if you have a elemental skill that hits multiple opponents, then you can stack that 4 times so that the final hit of that elemental skill is 8% crit rate more, which is interesting. I like that. Same with the burst. If your burst hits multiple opponents, since it can be triggered every 0.1 seconds, if your burst can hit multiple opponents, it can be triggered 4 times, giving the final hits of your burst 8% increased crit rate. So this seems to favor characters that either have a short skill cooldown, where you can consistently be hitting opponents with your elemental skill to keep that crit rate stack up, or who have a burst that hit multiple opponents almost in like a chain reaction. I feel like a burst that stays on the field or shoots out as opposed to a one hit. Kazuha, if you were to build a crit Zaha, because his elemental skill does continue to hit and his burst continues to hit. His burst stays on field for a long time. So this could be an interesting sword for if you're building a DPS Kazuha too. That'd be fun to look into. And that wraps up the Battle Pass weapons. Now we're going on to the Forgeable Weapons. The first Forgeable we have is Song of Stillness, which is the bow. Now the Forgeable Weapons, the Battle Pass weapons were all crit rate. The Forgeable Weapons move around a little bit, and now this is where that new mechanic I was talking about earlier gets introduced. But Song of Stillness, 41.3% attack, and then after the wielder is healed, they will deal 16% more damage for 8 seconds. This can be triggered even when the character is not on the field. That's an interesting mechanic they're introducing. I like that. Now we have Flowing Purity. Now this one, this weapon right here is the first one that's going to have this new mechanic on it. So Flowing Purity is the catalyst. It is an attack catalyst with 27.6 attack. When using an elemental skill, all elemental damage will be increased by 8% for 15 seconds, and a Bond of Life worth 24% of max HP will be granted. Now, the Bond of Life is the new mechanic, and this is actually kind of like it's almost like a double-edged sword. So this effect can be triggered once every 10 seconds. When the Bond of Life is cleared, every 1,000 HP cleared in the process will provide 2% all elemental damage bonus up to a maximum of 12%. This effect lasts 15 seconds. So the Bond of Life, where 24% of your max HP is granted, the maximum that the benefit can be is 12%, which means that anything over 6,000 HP on your Bond of Life is going to be wasted, right? Bond of Life will absorb healing effects that a character receives. This prevents them from recovering HP. After this character is healed for an amount equal to the Bond of Life, the bond can then be cleared. When a character is granted another Bond of Life, the healing required to clear the Bond of Life will also stack. So the Bond of Life stacks, and as you can see here, it has this little red area at the end of your health bar indicating the Bond of Life. Now, it also says the Bond of Life has a very long duration, if not actively canceled through healing or removed by a Statue of the Seven. So you can't just activate it and then just like let it fall off. You have to heal through this or go clear it off at the Statue of the Seven, or you're going to be stuck with it for a very long time. So essentially, you're going to get a benefit from the Bond of Life once you heal through it, but it absorbs the healing. So you have to be a little bit careful when you have the Bond of Life on you, since you're not going to be able to heal while you have Bond of Life. It's like another little bit you have to heal through before you get to that character's health. Now, moving on to the Polearm, we have a Rightful Reward, which is an HP Polearm. All right. Zhongli may be happy. We'll see. We have a 4-star HP Polearm instead of a black tassel at this point, which is nice. Tip of the Spear, when the wielder is healed, restore 8 energy. This effect can be triggered once every 10 seconds, and it can occur even when the character is not on the field. So this one has an effect similar to the bow, but instead of giving us extra damage when we're healed, this one restores energy when we're healed. Moving on to the Claymore, this is going to be another one with a healing buff. So we have 41.3% attack, Tidal Shadow, and then after the wielder is healed, attack will be increased by 24% for 8 seconds. This can be triggered even when the character is not on the field. So this is a huge amount of attack on this Claymore. 41.3% and then an additional 24% when you are healed. And then we have Finale of the Deep, which is the sword, and that is attack percent, 27.6, and now this is the other one that uses Bond of Life. So far we only have 2 weapons that use Bond of Life, the Crafted Catalyst and the Crafted Sword. This one is when using an elemental skill, attack will be increased by 12% for 15 seconds, and a Bond of Life where 25% of your max HP will be granted. This effect can be triggered once every 10 seconds. When the Bond of Life is cleared, a maximum of 150 attack will be gained based on 2.4% of the total amount of the bond cleared, lasting for 15 seconds. You do need to watch out for this one and make sure you're clearing that Bond of Life, because the Bond of Life can be triggered every 10 seconds, and if you don't clear it, it stacks with the previous one. So you can get to the point where you're like 50% Bond of Life on you if you aren't careful about clearing it. Let's say 12,000 health. Let's just round up. That means that if I'm using that sword, it's only putting a Bond of Life for 3,000 on me, which means I only need to, that's like a tick of Coco's jellyfish. So I don't think it's going to be anything like life-threatening, but it definitely is something to keep in mind. And also, I think the fact that you control when the Bond of Life goes off based on the healing means that you control when you get that buff. So it's like an on-demand buff, which is also going to maybe play into some strategy of like when is the best time to clear your Bond of Life to get that buff to maximize your damage output. And that's all of them. That's all the weapons. That is all 12 new weapons. I think they look really cool, though. I think these are going to be really interesting. I think some of them promote play styles that might be a little bit different from what we've seen currently, which I always like. I like it when they shake up the meta a little bit, when things come out that make people approach combat a little bit differently, and hopefully this does. It seems like there's a really big emphasis on healing, especially for those forgeable weapons, like buffing you when you get healed, and with the bond of life mechanic. So I'm excited to see what some different healers are doing, and also I'm excited to see what Hydro Traveler does. Is Hydro Traveler going to be a healer? I don't know, but there's definitely an emphasis on healing with these weapons in Fontaine. You guys stay legendary, and remember the sun will rise, and we will try again. Peace out, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. I love you guys.